Welcome back. This is the second video in my quick series on common side effects after a sleeve. Today I wanted to tackle vomiting. It is not a very nice topic, but it is one that is so common after surgery that I really couldn't leave it out. So there are a few questions that I ask my clients when they first sort of tell me that they're experiencing vomiting after a sleeve. And the first one is, are liquids staying down okay? So it's always really important that we rule out the most serious issues first. If you are not keeping anything down, you need to go and see your surgeon or your GP or even head into emergency right away. The worst thing that we can have happen is some pretty serious complications that may occur, and at minimum things like dehydration that need to get under control. However, if liquids are staying down, then I tend to move on to my next question. What foods don't cause any issues with vomiting? And usually there are people that when people report vomiting, they say that there are some safe foods that they can always eat and foods that always make them throw up. So for example, foods that are usually safe are things like yogurt or soup or really kind of soft pureed textures. And then if that's the case and they're throwing up with harder foods, there might be one of a couple of things. One common reason for vomiting after a sleeve when you are initially kind of post-op, within that first 6 to 8 weeks, is that you're just not ready to try those more solid textures. So back up a little bit, go back to what was safe, give your tummy a little bit of a rest for a couple of days, and then try that texture again. So after a sleeve, it should probably not be until about the 8-week mark when you start to be able to eat the really tough foods or sticky foods like grilled chicken or a piece of steak or fresh bread. Otherwise, you might just be trying to push things a little bit too early. So calm down, relax, go back a bit, and then give your tummy a break and come back to that food again in another couple of days or a couple of weeks. If you're a long-term post-op and there's still certain foods that just don't agree with you, there's one of two things that you can do. The first thing is avoid those foods, but that's not a really fun way to live your life. So I don't always encourage you to avoid foods. Some things like really sticky rice or fresh bread might just not be on the menu for you, and if you're okay with that, then that's fine. But if you're trying to still get protein in and you're looking for a variety of foods, then we do really want to get to the point where you can eat a piece of grilled chicken or eat a piece of steak without vomiting after your meal. So 9 times out of 10, the main reasons for vomiting after a sleeve, long-term post-op, are that you've eaten too much, too fast, or your mouthfuls are too big. So you really need to practice slowing down, listening for that sigh moment, which is what I described to you in the last video on reflux, where you are not overeating. You think about a hunger scale of 0 to 10, where 0 is empty and 10 is vomiting. You want to try and stay at all times between a 3 and a 7. So stop eating when you feel satisfied but not quite full yet. Remember, those meal times should be taking you about 20 to 30 minutes. You should be taking small thumbnail sized mouthfuls with rests in between. Another tip is to alternate your mouthfuls, protein, veg, protein, veg, protein, veg, rather than going protein, 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 because that tends to make the build up a little bit worse. As a side note, often when we're talking about vomiting after a sleeve, and especially after eating, we're actually really talking about regurgitation. So what I mean by this is you might have experienced what we call a foamy, where you might just bring up maybe like 1 or 2 bites of food and the rest is like this foamy fluff. And that is because you've probably got a little piece of food stuck in your esophagus, and your esophagus is going, oh, that doesn't feel good. And so it's stimulating lots of saliva. And then because it's blocked there, that saliva is just there foaming up in there and getting in the way. So rather than get to that point where you need to regurgitate that food, try those tips, think about how you're eating, pay attention to your meals, and hopefully you won't be throwing up anywhere near as often.